everyone. I'm John Evans. Welcome to another episode of One-on-One. One of the cool things about working in the TV news business now for 34 years is watching the people you worked with go on to do bigger and better things. A young intern from UNC Wilmington came into the newsroom I worked in about a dozen years ago, and she wanted to be a reporter. Well, Anna Kooiman got a reporting job in that newsroom. She got better. She moved on to bigger markets and then ultimately landed a network news job at Fox News Channel. She went on there to anchor the Fox and Friends weekend morning show. After 5 years at the network, Anna left last year when her husband Tim got a job opportunity in his native Australia. Well, I caught up with Anna by Skype as she was walking her dog Baxter along the beach. We talked about her career, her ties to Wilmington, and how a Carolina girl likes living down under.
Well, can you tell just by the environment that I'm in right now that it's a pretty easy place to get used to? Baxter and I are on our morning walk. I got him a couple years after I left Wilmington, John, after I left you guys at WWAY and went to Ohio. So he's a 10-year-old dog now, just celebrated his 10-year-old birthday. And I had a hard time a little bit when I got here without him because he had to go through the quarantine process. Which was about a 6-month process. And my best friend took care of him in San Francisco. It happens in the host country. And then once they get to Australia, they're just in quarantine for 10 days. But now he's at Bondi Beach with me, and there's a Ferris wheel behind me. They bring in all kinds of fun stuff during the winter months, because people aren't enjoying the beach in the same way that they do during the summer. They're just finding new ways to enjoy it. But so there's the Ferris wheel behind me, and in a little while, the ice skating rink should get going too.
So
but it's just a beautiful place, John.
Is it an interesting change though? I mean, July and it's cold, and December and it's warm. I mean, it's got to be a little getting used to.
Yeah, it's hard to get used to be honest. I'll tell you what, Thanksgiving, November, it's starting to normally get chilly there in North Carolina, and same when I was living in New York and Ohio. And we did celebrate Thanksgiving with some of our American friends who live here at Bondi Beach, just down the street from us. But it was weird being in the grocery store looking for cranberry sauce and things, and people are looking at me like I have three heads going, what, cranberry sauce right now? What is Thanksgiving? Because they obviously don't celebrate Thanksgiving here for the most part. And then for Christmas, my husband and I, we're down at the beach now, so I'll let you take a look at this.
Wow.
But for Christmas, my husband and I went for a swim in the water. It was like probably the third swim I'd done here because I've got that thin skin being from North Carolina. This Pacific water is a little bit too cold for me.
So what was Anna like growing up? I know you were an active because I know you played softball, but what were you like growing up? Did you have any thoughts about what you wanted to do when you got older?
No, I didn't think about doing this for sure. At first, I wanted to be a dolphin trainer at SeaWorld. And then I broke my arm really bad in 5th grade, had surgery and had to go through physical therapy and stuff. And so then I thought I wanted to be a physical therapist. Then I got to chemistry class in high school, and I thought, this is really boring. Then I got to college at UNCW. I was in the communication studies school, and I still wasn't positive what I wanted to do, to be honest. It seems like a lot of newscasters, they're going around with their Fisher-Price microphone going, oh, I want to be the next Barbara Walters or Katie Couric. And I wasn't one of those. But one of the professors at UNCW recommended me for some courtside reporting at UNCW games. And they were broadcast live on Fox Sports. And, of course, I thought I was really good. I don't think I was now, looking back. But it kind of gave me the bug. And then I got an internship with you guys at WWA. Here, let me take my sunglasses off. Sorry about that. Then I got an internship with you guys at WWAY. And my very first day on the job or on the internship was the biggest drug bust in Brunswick County history. And I just thought, wow, this is really, really cool. And I just caught the bug, and I just decided that was what I wanted to do.
Your first job, though, was nowhere near television, wasn't it? Wasn't it working in a warehouse?
My first job was working at my parents' warehouse.
Yeah.
They own a Peppermint Forest Christmas shop and Oasis pools and patio. And my brother and I would price ornaments and listen to music out in the warehouse and just kind of hang out. That was our form of babysitting, I guess, you know. And I would bring out cookies to all of my mom's clients at the Peppermint Forest Christmas shop, shortbread cookies and apple cider and stuff like that. So yeah, that was my first job. And my brother actually, he decided to continue doing the family biz. He's taken it over now there in Charlotte, and my parents have gone into retirement, and I got into TV, and I'm in semi-retirement for a little while here in Australia.
Now you were a good athlete too in high school, were you not? I mean, because I know you did some athletics at UNCW, but you were pretty involved in athletics at Myers Park, weren't you?
Yeah, mostly I'm just chasing this guy around these days, but yeah, at Myers Park I ran track or cross country and played on the varsity softball team, and then in college I actually ran track at UNCW too.
For Coach Sprecher, right? He was a big influence in your life early on, wasn't he?
Yep. Yeah, and Lane Schweer, too. You know, I went into college, and I was in a sorority. I was in Alpha Delta Pi, and I was really involved with that. I was the philanthropy chair and the Bible study leader, and, you know, of course, it's just fun. You're into boys and partying and going to the beach and doing a little studying on the side. And but I was always really into running, and I'd run my first marathon during high school. So I actually ended up on a trip to London. I was studying abroad for a summer with the business school at UNCW, and there were a couple of girls on the track team there, and they said, and we would run together every day, and they're like, "You're dogging us. You need to be on the team. What are you doing? Like, you should be running with us." And so I ended up joining the team, and I did that for a year. But it was also the same year that I started being a reporter at WWAY while I was still in college, and I about lost my head that year. Trying to work 55 hours. You guys have me working 55 hours a week and
well, you
working
know,
on the weekend.
Cub reporters. That's part of the getting into the business was working those long weekend hours, though.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, you learn everything. I mean, I attribute so much of my work ethic. I mean, of course, it comes from your family and from within, but to my time at WWAY too, because I mean, you know, the one-man bands, you're your own writer, your own producer, your own editor, your own photographer. And you know what you don't realize as a viewer is a lot of times whatever the reporter does that day, it just goes straight on the air because there's not time and there's not enough bodies in the newsroom to be looking over everything and checking over your shoulder. So you know, you got to make sure that you do the right thing you don't get in trouble with John Evans.
Did you ever in those early days, because I remember, I mean, even it's only 12, 13 years ago, but you know, dogging that camera around and doing all that in those early days or as an intern, did you ever say, man, maybe this isn't for me?
No, you know what I did? I took it as a challenge, John. I never thought that wasn't for me. It was, I don't know, it just lit a fire in me and just said, okay, what am I going to do to get to the next thing? And I remember, you know, I was thinking about, we would all think about our resume tapes. How do you get to the next job? Not that Wilmington isn't a great place to be, because it is. It was, you know, and it is, you get the weather there, you get the severe weather. So you're having to deal with breaking news out in the middle of a hurricane. There's actually, I don't know if there is anymore, but there was actually a decent amount of crime there too, which is unfortunate, but it's good for the news business. And you've got Camp Lejeune right there. So you've got the military coverage that you're doing, getting your feet wet with that. So it does play like a bigger market, but I had sights set. It wasn't on New York, actually. I mean, I think everybody dreams of New York, but my dream initially was just to make it back to Charlotte. And I remember trying to get from Wilmington straight to Charlotte and talking to a couple of the news directors at WBTV and WSOC, and actually and at Fox Charlotte too, where I ended up. And they said, listen, you know, it helps that you're from here and we can tell that you're driven and you're smart, you're pretty and all those things, but you know, you really ought to go to another market first. So then you're working on your resume tape while you're at WWAY or WECT, and you're trying to figure out where you're going to go next. So I went to Toledo, Ohio, and was there for a couple of years. I feel like I learned how to be a reporter at WWAY in Wilmington, and then I learned how to be an anchor at WECT. You ready to walk, Baxter? He's getting hitsy. And then let's see. And then, and then Fox Charlotte, I had this really quirky co-host who was just awesome. And he's still a friend of mine today. He came to my wedding. His name's Mark Mathis.
Yeah.
And he's in San Diego now. But I feel like I learned how to be a TV host rather than just a news anchor when I was in Charlotte, because he would throw the craziest things at me. He was the guy who made the wacky weatherman phenomena really take hold, I think.
Right. And you went to Toledo and you learned how to be an anchor there at WNW, and then you go back to Charlotte and you do a morning show, which almost kind of grooms you for what you ended up doing at Fox, right?
Yeah, it really did, John. I mean, when I got to Fox, though, want to go up here? When I got to Fox News Channel in New York, I was a reporter at the Bureau in New York, which means, they send you all over the Northeast to cover anything from blizzards to court cases to political debates, you name it. So I did that. But my dream was always to get on Fox and Friends, which is the morning show there. And so I would volunteer. I was working weekends there too at first, and I would volunteer to do the stories that I was going to be fronting between 11 a.m. and 7 p.m. That was my shift.
Right.
So I would volunteer to come in and do hits between 6 a.m. and 10 a.m. during their show too. And so it made for a really, 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 really long day, but I got familiarized with the viewers and with the producers and with the talent and everything. And I think it paid off, because then I got to start filling in as an anchor. And then they moved me from the Bureau to be the exclusive Fox and Friends reporter, which was so cool. I got to travel the country and see so much, and really hone my craft doing that. And then I got the job being an anchor for Fox and Friends Weekend, and I did that for 3 years. And now I'm here in Australia.
Now, the one thing that I remember is that you were, and just hearing that you volunteered to come in on your off time and make it long days, that's a drive and a desire that not many getting into this business right now have. You've always had it. I remember that when you were an intern. I remember when you first started with us, is that you wanted to succeed. And I don't think many coming at and into this business now want to do that. Do you see that now?
Well, I don't know if that's the case or not, but I will say, John, whenever I meet people and they, oftentimes I'll meet our fans from Fox and Friends, and they say, "Oh, my daughter wants to do what you do. What did you do to get there?" And I said, "She doesn't want to do that. No, she doesn't. She doesn't want to do it." And they're like, "Yes, she does." And I'm like, "Does she really have a fire in her belly? Because you work nights and weekends and holidays and you move around the country." And I feel like I was one of the lucky ones. I mean, sure, I have talent and all that, but there's a lot of people that have talent and don't get to make it to New York City, and in the business, I noticed when I was at WWAY, I mean, I remember the day they came in and cut all of our photographers, and it was devastating. You remember that day?
Yeah.
I mean, it was sad. We were watching all of our friends pack up their desks and go, and then all of a sudden we were stuck carrying the camera and doing 2+ jobs at a time. And the money is tight. And I remember when I was in Wilmington, Baxter's shedding. I remember when I was in Wilmington, that I would eat at the dollar menu at Wendy's and stuff, because I couldn't afford to eat hardly. So
yeah, it's not for everyone. That's for sure. Not for everyone.
Yeah. I would say it's not for everybody. And, but I mean, I feel really, really, really blessed that the timing worked out for me for all of those jobs, because, who knows what would have happened if I hadn't gone to Toledo. I was also offered a job in Reno, Nevada. And what if I'd gone there and, found somebody to marry, and I never ended up marrying my Aussie husband, and I never ended up getting back to Charlotte, and I never ended up getting to New York. And, it's like the butterfly effect, So a lot comes down to timing.
Share some of your best and toughest days working in network television. I mean, I know you travel all across the country, but all of a sudden you're in a national spotlight, and there's a lot more people looking at you. So were there days that were tougher than others? Were there days that were better than others?
Yeah, well, the expectation that the producers have for you there is just up a gear, and I can't even explain it. It's so different than working in local news. When I remember when I would be a morning anchor or a morning reporter, and then you start hours and hours earlier than everybody else, and then when the suits finally get there, they're just starting their day, so they think that it's you starting your day too.
Right.
And then you end up working an extra long day in local news too. So I think that happens in local news too, but it was just up a gear. For example, if there was breaking news on a Sunday, I would have just worked a Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, typically as a reporter. And then Saturday and Sunday, I would have hosted Fox and Friends, which is a very, very, very demanding show to do because it's almost exclusively teleprompter free outside of the headlines and the intros to the interviews. You have to know the issues inside and out. And so it's a lot of studying the night before. It's a lot of not being able to go to dinner with your friends and going out with your friends and always, being in early, getting up early, 3:00 in the morning, that alarm goes off and then you have to be on for 4 hours and you're switching gears from interviewing Donald Trump to then sliding down a water slide that they brought in on the plaza for some reason because it's summertime and we just like to have fun on that show. And then the next story might be about gun control and the next story might be about abortion and the next story might be about terrorism or something. And you just have to know the issues to be able to, jump from this to that and the other. And then what if there was breaking news right after the show? Like, I'm trying to think. There were so many times I went out on breaking news. If it was maybe the Pulse nightclub shooting.
Yeah, because you went to Orlando for that, didn't you?
Yeah, I did, but I can't remember if that was on a Sunday. But that is typical. I mean, if there was breaking news on a Sunday, they would say, Anna, I know you're supposed to be off on a Monday, but, we need you to go because I was their reporter too. And so sometimes you wouldn't sleep. You'd be up from 3:00 in the morning and, jamming and cramming and getting ready for your show, then hosting for 4 hours, which is exhausting. And then you would, need to go hop on a plane and fly straight to your live shot and try to bone up on whatever had just happened and work the sources on the ground. And so, you would work on on fumes sometimes. But you also have a really, really big support network at the network level. You're out there and you always have a producer, you always have a live truck operator and an audio guy and a camera guy and sometimes even an extra person. You might even have 2 cameras or a GoPro operator or an extra lighting guy or something like that, And so you've got the team around you to give you the resources, the tools that you need to get the job done too. So it is a lot more demanding, but you have a lot more help too.
And this may not be a fair question, but I usually try to ask it of artists, and I consider you one because of all the work that you've done. What's a person you may have met along the way or a story that you may have done along the way that just will never, ever leave you? Are there a couple of those that from your career?
Yeah, I'm sure there are.
I mean, I know you were in Orlando for the Pulse nightclub. I know you were, in so many of these other places where you've done it. And again, it may not be a fair question, but it's tough.
John, there's so many. Every time you cover breaking news, it is so sad. I remember being out in San Bernardino and talking to a family who had just lost their wife, and it's hours before I interviewed them. So there's people like that. Then there's a lot of inspiring stories that you get when you're covering wounded warriors and things. I know that's something you get to do at Camp Lejeune there too.
Yeah.
At Fox, we put a huge preference on those stories because we feel like it's not just the soldier that is serving, it's the entire family, and the lasting effects that happen when they come home from serving. So just numerous. It seems like every other day I was meeting somebody that would change the way I thought about things.
Right. I don't mean to make you blush here, but didn't you get some publicity from the Howard Stern show at one point?
Oh, I've gotten a lot of publicity from the Howard Stern show, actually. I had no idea they had been talking about me on air for a long time because I'd never listened to the Howard Stern show. I always had this connotation that this was just a dirty show and not something that you wanted to be a part of. But I don't think it's that way. I still don't listen to it, but it seems like they tackle a lot of news issues too. But yeah, I don't know. There was one of the DJs there that thought I was super cute, so they would talk about me, they voted me one of their sexiest news anchors or something like that.
So that's got to come with the territory, though, right?
April. Do what?
That's got to come with the territory, though.
Oh, of course. Yeah, it's all right. Yeah, it's flattering. It's flattering.
You became a fitness instructor when you worked in Charlotte, did you not?
Yep. I was teaching up to 10 fitness classes a week. While I was working in Toledo, I got into this fitness format called Turbo Kick, which is a cross between kickboxing, hip hop dancing, and athletic drills. And it's all choreographed to whatever's hot on the radio. So you get this new choreography every 3 months or so, a video that teaches you how to do it. And, you're dancing to Rihanna and Britney Spears and Beyonce and Lady Gaga and Kesha. Anyway, so I got into the format while I was there. And then when I got to Charlotte, nobody was teaching it. And I was like, just so bummed out because this was an obsession. I was going like 5 or 6 times a week if I could. And so I was talking to my friends in Toledo. I said, well, what am I going to do? They said, well, you're going to become an instructor. I said, I can't do that. I was never a dancer or a cheerleader. I'm an athlete. And they're like, no, you can do it. So I ended up, taking the courses, and I fell in love with it. And it was a huge part of my life in Charlotte. I mean, I was teaching boot camp classes. I was packing out 2 basketball courts full of people. So like 100 people would come to class sometimes on Saturdays. But then when I got to New York, Fox News said, listen, it's time for you to focus just on news. No more fitness instructing.
That's
all right.
What was it like to get the phone call when they wanted you to be the Azalea Festival Queen in 2016?
Oh man, it was so exciting. It was actually kind of a slow burn though, because they, one of my girlfriends from college was friends with somebody on the board or something somehow. So it was kind of like a game of telephone where they were feeling me out to see if I would be interested or not. And I was like, are you kidding me? Fox will let me off. This is awesome. I remember covering the Azalea Festival while I was there. And John, it was so cool when I got crowned there by the governor, because Pat McCrory was actually my mayor in Charlotte for like 10 years growing up or something. And as he's doing that, I look out into the sea of people, and I saw you, and I saw a bunch of other people from my time there, and it just felt amazing to be back in the port city and be honored with something like that. And I feel like it meant so much more to me than it may or may not have meant to some of the others, because I have real ties to the area. And it was cool getting to go to the hospitals and the schools and go to the Coast Guard Cutter Diligence and the USS Battleship North Carolina and all the fun parties and the fun gowns. And that was a great experience. Was it more work than you thought it was going to be? Yes. It was exhausting. It was a ton, but I think I brought a lot of it on myself too, as I tend to do in life. Because I wanted to make sure that I got to do things that were really important to me. Like I went for a run with the UNCW track team one of the mornings. So that meant getting up at, 5:30 or whatever, instead of sleeping in, which most of the queens probably would have slept in rather than opting to go for a run with the UNCW track team. But I wanted to see my old coach and meet the new players. And I did an interview with one of the local stations there too. And it was worth every second of my time though. It was an amazing experience. Then what was it? Talk to me about making the decision to move with Tim to Australia, because I imagine, obviously your family and everything, but things are going so well for you. That had to be a major, husband and wife decision-making time at that point, right? Yeah. I mean, it was a huge decision. It is a huge decision, and it will be a huge decision to make when and if we move back too. When Tim and I met, before we were even engaged, I promised him that I would do this and that I would get to know his family and get to know his culture and where he grew up and all of his friends. And it has been such a worthwhile experience for me as a person to just expand my horizons, but also it's been so good for my marriage to get to know just why my husband is the way that he is. You know, he's been able to spend so much time in North Carolina with my family. And I never would have been able to do this otherwise. So, but it is so far away. It's like
Well,
24 hours away.
well, it is, and I say that because when I, way back when television was in black and white when I started, I mean, three of the first bosses I worked with in this business were divorced and were separated. It takes a toll on marriages,
It
traveling
does.
and everything like that. So
I saw that across the board. You're right, John. In local news and in national news, it's just as bad, if not worse. And in the pace that I was going, would have been tough to keep up married with kids. And I do want to have kids. Tim and I want to start a family and all that. Right now, we're just enjoying Australia, and we went all over South Australia, did wine tasting there for our birthdays. We're both February babies. We went down to Tasmania, saw some Tassie Devils there. We've been to Melbourne a couple of times. We're going to Canberra this weekend to go see the Parliament House and the War Memorial. And then in a couple weeks, we're going to go to the Great Barrier Reef and snorkel there, see some beautiful fish. Every time I talk about the reef, all the Aussies go, yeah, you better go while it's still around because we're losing it. And the Harbor Bridge and the Opera House, and there's so much iconic material to see as an American tourist living in Australia. So we're just enjoying that. I'm going to go to Asia in a few weeks too. At the end of August, I'm going to go with a girlfriend that I met here. We're going to take a couple weeks and do that, and then my husband and I are off to Italy. They get more holiday in Australia. They've got a great work-life balance here that I think we could learn from in the U.S.
It sounds like you got plenty of time to be able to get away.
Yeah. Well, and I'm not working I'm working, but I'm not, I don't have a full-time job. I launched a fitness, travel, and lifestyle website.
Yeah, I want to talk to you about that. What's that like? You're now a blogger first, or maybe a wife first, blogger second, and then we see you on Fox and Friends every once in a while, or on the Network 10 down there. I know you're on there too. So what's that like? You had to really kind of change your lifestyle as far as work is concerned.
Yes, but that was very methodical. That was very methodical. America is so divided right now politically, and it's just sickening and really disheartening. And it's nice to take a breath of fresh air and be away from all that. So I thought, you know what, I'm gonna concentrate on the things that I just love to do, that I want to share with other people, and hopefully they become passionate about some of my passions. And like as far as the travel piece goes with the website, growing up in North Carolina, my parents weren't huge travelers, and I don't know, they kind of don't know where I came from wanting to see the world so much, but I think we can learn a lot from the rest of the world. And I hope I can be an example to other people. And I remember always thinking, oh, it's so expensive to travel. Like, that's an impossible dream. And it is expensive to travel, but there are ways around it. You can fly discount airlines, and you don't have to eat at the fanciest restaurants. You don't have to stay in the nicest hotels. And there are plenty of free or inexpensive things to do when you go and visit cities. And just being around other people and other cultures, I think, we can become better people ourselves and better ambassadors for America. So that's one big thing I hope happens from my website too.
Is it interesting to watch America from down there and what's happening? And being a veteran of the news business, it's changed so much, and it is different now than when you started.
Yeah, and the way that the rest of the world views us, they pay so much attention to everything that's going on in the U.S., whether it's our politics, whether it's our entertainment, it's everything. They know so much about us, and we know so little about the rest of the world that, I think we ought to pay attention a little bit more, the same way that they're paying attention to us. And I think it could serve us well.
Well, you've taken on a new life down there, and but folks I know still want to see you on Fox and Friends here. What's one thing about network TV that most people don't know or would be surprised to hear?
Well, I find that the people who are the best in the news business or in the TV business are the ones who feel comfortable in their own skin and comfortable in their own beliefs, and they don't try to pretend like they are someone that they aren't, or pretend they believe something that they don't. Just I think when somebody's genuine, it really comes through the screen. So like my co-hosts, for example, Tucker Carlson and Clayton Morris, and also our meteorologist, Rick Reichmuth, those guys are such good guys. I was so blessed to work with them, and they're just the same off the screen as they are on the screen. So, I think the people who do the best in this business are the ones who work hard, but the ones who also aren't scared to be themselves.
Okay, well, I know I've taken up almost your entire walk in the park there with Baxter, and
what do you think, Bax? He's getting tired.
Yeah, I was going to say he looks like Henry looks at me when we've gone too long. He gives me that nod, like, "Okay, Dad, let's go back home."
Oh, how old is Henry, John?
Henry is 8, going to be 9 in October, but he still acts like he's a year and a half old and jumps in the pool every time I say pool. He'll jump in there like he does all the time.
Does he get into everything?
No, not anymore.
Oh, that's good.
Not anymore. He hasn't eaten socks in years, so thankfully our vet bills have gone down.
Yeah, exactly.
It was so good to see you at the Azalea Festival and again at the 4th of July Festival in Southport. It really has been fun from my perspective watching your career and watching you have so much success, and it really is. It's good for the soul.
Well, John, you taught me so much. You taught me so much about how to write a story and how to keep it punchy and how to keep it short and how to lure in the viewers and make sure you got the who, what, where, when, and why. And so thank you for that. And thank you for this interview. I'm honored that you brought me on your podcast.
Well, I appreciate it. Tell Tim we said thank you as well. And tell Baxter we appreciate you allowing him to take some time out with us again. It's so good to see you again, Anna. I'll talk to you soon next time you come to the States.
It's great to see you too. Okay, yeah, that sounds good, John. All right, bye.
Anna still does some freelance work every once in a while for Fox News Channel, and she also does some TV work for Network 10 in Sydney, Australia. You can keep up with her on Twitter or Instagram, or even log on to her lifestyle website. It's Anna, KOOIMAN.com. And yes, she is as nice as she seems. If you know someone who you think would be a good interview for an upcoming episode of the podcast, send me an email at jevans@wect.com. Or you can reach out to me on Twitter or Facebook. I'm on those social media sites every day. And if you'd like what you've heard in this podcast, please do me a favor, leave a review or a rating, because that will help us get even more listeners. I'm John Evans. Thanks for being with us for this episode of One on One.